utilization of funding. Part of it is for capex, part of it is for spectrum payments. There's an amount which is under general corporate purposes, which we can use as per our discretion. But you would have also seen the RHP that we cannot use the funds for making any payments to promoter or promoter group companies, and that would be the governing factor.
Okay. Just one more question. Just doing the math, if once the moratorium comes to an end in the second half of FY26, the math seems to suggest that it will be difficult for you to meet the obligations. What is the government's thinking on the way forward, since they are the single largest stakeholder? Is there a possibility we will see some relief from the government? Maybe the moratorium gets extended.
So let me answer that, and if Sushil or Ravinder want to add anything, I'll request them to do so. Fundamentally, if you recollect the reforms package which was announced in September 21, the government had provided for that the installment series which is arising out of the deferment of 4 years, which will start after September 25, as per the reforms package, that can be converted to equity by the government. So I would say that we plan to pay the government installments out of our cash generation. However, there is a government support available in the form of the reforms package, which states that some installments or whichever can be converted at the government's option. So the government support exists in a way there. But
that will entail a large dilution, converting some of those installments into equity.
So let's say that today the government is at 32% shareholding. With this issue making certain assumptions, they would get to a 24% shareholding. You can do your own calculation, but our rough sense is that if that conversion were to happen, they will probably not exceed the levels, or they would be in the ballpark of the levels where they are today. So I don't think that is a cause of concern for us.
Okay. And one final question.
Can we allow others also, please? Anurag.
Hi, Anurag Joshi, ET Now. What's the sense you have right now about the institutional commitment for the FPO? And the second part of my question is that, what kind of a retail appetite you see for VI? You're one of the 3 telecom companies in India right now. You have, of course, you have a brand recall. So how much of support do you see from retail investors for your issue?
So I'll let the bankers take that question. They deal with it day in, day out.
Hi, I think, as I mentioned before, we had an extensive roadshow with all the institutional investors, both international and domestic, and we have a good mix of both domestic and international investors participating in it. I would request you to just wait for one day. You will get the details by end of day tomorrow. From the retail perspective, I think we have just opened the issue, and retail marketing and HNI marketing will start today. So usually retail HNI has a good subscription when you have very strong anchor investors which will come in. And addition to that, in normal IPOs, as you mentioned, normal IPO, FPOs, you don't have such a big retail brand coming out. It's a very big retail brand. So from that perspective, we are positive that they should get good subscription from both the HNI and the retail investors also. But we are just starting the marketing today for the retail HNI part of it, so we have to wait and watch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Ayushi from Hindu Business Line. A few questions. Firstly, it appears that this FPO has been underwritten to a large extent, and there is good interest coming from institutional investors across the board. Given that Airtel and Vodafone had applied for a curative petition with the Supreme Court in October, have you made any commitments to the investors there that you would be expecting relief on AGR payments from the court going forward?
So I think AGR or the curative petition is a sub judice matter. I would not want to mention anything about it at this point of time.
Okay,
and whatever has to be kind of done from an investor's communication is contained in the RHP. So you just have to go by the RHP as to what have we communicated to the investors. That is pretty much what we have communicated to the investors.
Sure.
All right, so that was the Vodafone Ideas management talking about the issuance of shares for raising funds. All right, let's focus on the market first because the geopolitical tension has really spooked the markets globally. And let's take stock of lunch. Our trade Nifty 50 is down 0.85%. A large part of the jitteriness is also seen and led by the banking space. So 1.23% down on Bank Nifty. Sensex has lost 650 points at the moment. When we talk about the mid-cap universe, that has taken a deep cut, 1.25% down on the mid-cap universe as well in that particular index. So it's not a surprise that with broader market being spooked because of the jitteriness that we are seeing because of the geopolitical tension, well, the advanced decline ratio is heavily in favor of the declining stocks. However, looking at some of the Nifty 50 components, some of the counters are making a contra move also because of crude playing out and the crude prices that will be impacted because of the global uncertainties and geopolitics. So ONGC is up almost 5.5% in trade. Hindalco, Nestle, Reliance Industries, NTPC, Maruti, just a handful of stocks which are really in the green at the moment. But when we talk about the stocks, other stocks are, well, all big boys are really being a drag on Nifty 50 and therefore the market weakness really continues, Nikki.
Clearly not a good day of trade, but I would say some solace coming in there because it's a holiday truncated week. But let's now focus on the big geopolitical story from the weekend. Iran launched a drone and missile attack against Israel in retaliation to Israel's attack on their consulate in Syria. US President Joe Biden has urged for restraint in terms of Israel's response to the attack, while the Iranians hailed the operation as a success and says it's over. Nations across the world, including India, have called in for the restraint in the region. CNBC's Dan Murphy gets us a roundup of all that has transpired so far.
An unprecedented situation here in the Middle East, and no question, as you have just been describing, tensions running high in the aftermath of this extraordinary attack that we saw from Iran on Saturday directly against Israel. Israel is saying that it will respond. Israeli officials, we understand, and members of the War Cabinet have been meeting over the last few hours to discuss the appropriate response, but it's unclear at this point exactly what the timing and the scope would be. So, of course, everyone in the region and, of course, asset investors as well on edge as we await to hear exactly what Israel is going to do next. The big question, how far will Bibi Netanyahu go in order to push ahead that potential counterattack on Iran, and what would it mean for the wider region? Those questions all remain unanswered at this point. What we do know, though, is that President Joe Biden did use that phone call with Prime Minister Netanyahu to urge him not to do anything that would escalate this situation. He says the United States will not support any Israeli attack on Iran. And at the same time, in the aftermath of this attack, we've also heard from senior Iranian officials who have suggested that their operation is now complete. So we've seen calls for calm from across the aisle, both Israel and the Iranians, perhaps now looking to see exactly what the other side does in order to move this situation forward.
All right, so that's a big global development on our radar to be tracked very closely, and that's having a huge impact on our markets. All right, with that, we'll slip into a short breather on Business Lunch, but coming up on the other side, well, BJP is banking on Noida and Greater Noida's upcoming infrastructure projects to win Gautam Budh Nagar Lok Sabha seat, and Congress alleges the infrastructure projects are only on paper. Special report in just a bit. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch, and let's focus on the upcoming elections. And Uttar Pradesh's Gautam Budh Nagar constituency has been pitched as a shining example of infrastructure development with ambitious projects like an international airport, an Olympic city, and an international film city. As has this infra boom really taken off in Gautam Budh Nagar is the big question, and will it become an election issue and an agenda? Well, Shivani Bajaj, our colleague finds out in this particular report.
In the last few years, Uttar Pradesh's Gautam Budh Nagar has become the poster boy for India's infrastructure development. The state is poised to unveil Asia's largest airport in Jewar and has ambitious plans for a world-class Olympic city in Yamuna Expressway area, alongside an international film city and a heritage corridor connecting all these developments to the iconic Taj Mahal and Vrindavan. While these projects remain in the planning stages, the ruling party is expected to leverage them for the upcoming Lok Sabha elections. The upcoming Jewar International Airport is clearly at the center of most of the infrastructure development, be it building a small city around the airport or connecting it to important sites. Work is on in full swing. Yamuna Expressway Industrial Development Authority officials tell CNBC-TV18 that talks are on to decide on a new rail line connecting Jewar Airport to the IGI International Airport in Delhi. Apart from that, a 72-kilometer Rapid-X-Cum metro route is in the making from Ghaziabad RRTS to Jewar International Airport. However, the ruling party is accused of ignoring the convenience of people of Gautam Budh Nagar. Noida, Greater Noida and Yamuna Expressway areas are majorly inhabited by flat dwellers, and the delay in construction of many properties is a big issue. The lack of traffic management in areas like Noida Extension raise issues of improper planning in the majorly urban constituency of Gautam Budh Nagar.
इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की आप बात कर रहे हैं, आप बताइए ना कि आपने डिलीवर क्या किया है। जेवर एयरपोर्ट की हम लोग बात करते हैं, 3 चरणों में काम होना है। पहले चरण में अभी 50% काम भी पूरा नहीं हुआ है, जबकि ये इनका जो प्रोजेक्ट है ये पिछली सरकार का था। आप फ्लैट बायर्स की समस्या किसी से छुपी नहीं है। आप इस शहर में किसी भी तबके से बात करेंगे तो वो एक तो वादा खिलाफी की बात करेगा जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने उसके साथ की है, और दूसरा जो त्रस्त है, जो यहाँ की व्यवस्था से त्रस्त है, उसके बारे में बात करेगा। योगी जी की दूसरी सरकार है, अभी मेट्रो का एक पुल भी नोएडा एक्सटेंशन के लिए बना हो तो बताइए। बार बार हम सिर्फ ये सुनते हैं कि आज 1000 करोड़ इसके लिए सैंक्शन हुआ है, 2000 करोड़ हुआ है। ये सिर्फ जनता को बहकाने वाली बातें हैं।
सबसे ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम यहाँ ट्रैफिक की है। सुबह आते हैं कॉलेज के टाइम पे तब भी ट्रैफिक रहता है, और आते वक्त भी बहुत होता है। 1.5-2 घंटे लग जाते हैं ग्रेटर नोएडा जाने में।
The new parts of Noida that are getting built now, especially near Patla Chowk, which is Greater Noida West, a lot of development is coming up. That whole roundabout tends to get a lot congested during the peak hours in the morning as well as evening. So that is something which maybe somebody will have to look into, maybe provide some alternate routes to that area.
The BJP, however, says that the infrastructure has been given a big push under the current government, and what Bangalore has done for Karnataka's economy, Gautam Budh Nagar can do for the economy of Uttar Pradesh. The party spokesperson agrees that traffic, electricity and delay in construction are important issues.
जब फास्ट ट्रैक अर्बन डेवलपमेंट होता है तो some problems arise out of it. Sanitation is a problem because of overload of the sewage and other things. Then there are problem about the infrastructure on the power generation transmission also there. Then there is a problem of public transport in various areas. Even in Noida there are problems about parking. So the first thing on the development of any area or any city is you identify and accept that problems. We have done lot from almost 6 years in Uttar Pradesh.
With events like Bharat MotoGP and Uttar Pradesh Investor Summit happening in Gautam Budh Nagar, the state government is pitching the area as the one-stop destination for global investment and infra development. But will this really become an election issue has to be seen. In Noida, with Vijay Pradeep Kumar, this is Shivani Bajaj for CNBC-TV18.
All right, and staying with our elections coverage, and remember, we are just a few days away from the general elections to start, and the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party released its manifesto for the upcoming polls yesterday. My colleague Sapna Das joins us now with the key highlights. Tell us, Sapna, what is on top of their agenda?
Well, definitely it's economy and growth rate. So the number one guarantee that the manifesto is giving is positioning India as the third largest economy in the next 5 odd years. And to do this, the high growth rates are going to be supported by low inflation and fiscal prudence. Both are buzzwords at the moment, especially fiscal prudence indicating that the government will continue with its tight-fisted fiscal management. That's what we have been observing in the last 2 to 3 odd years. So no dose, so to speak, as such, except for some very targeted social sector schemes on which we'll come in a minute. Apart from this, it also talks about positioning India as the global manufacturing hub. And for this, a couple of sectors that are going to be in focus, auto and EVs, railways, you have, chip manufacturing, semicon, global manufacturing hub for electronics. India is a big market for that, and the timeline for that is around 2030. Similarly, for aviation, also lab-grown diamonds. India is trying to become the largest producer in the world on that front. So almost everything under the sun has been covered as far as the manufacturing space is concerned, in positioning India as a trusted, global manufacturing hub. Similarly, in the infra space, almost everything covered, right from railways to roadways to waterways, to aviation, to new international airports, redevelopment of the existing stations, new bullet trains for South, East and North India. So there is a lot of talk in the manifesto. It generally gives more a sense of continuity, something which on which the government has been working in the last 5 odd years at least. And I suppose for the exact announcements, we'll have to wait for the budget to unfold. That's one. Second, of course, on the social sector, we are aware of the fact that the PMGKY, the free food grain program, has been extended by another 5 years. Prime Minister has made a reiteration of that. Also, in terms of the Mudra loans, there some relief for the lower sections. They're planning to increase the limits, or rather double the loan limits to 20 lakh odd rupees. Swanidhi, again, under that scheme, 50,000 rupees is available, but that limit is also going to be raised. You have, PM Surya Ghar. So, Muft Bijli is going to be available via the solar rooftops. At least that's what the claim is. So, similarly, PM Awas Yojana, 3 crore more Pakka houses to be built for the poor. So, all of that will continue. But here on the fiscal side, it's very clear that fiscal prudence will be followed. They're trying to maintain inflation at the lower levels. Let's see what happens. Crude is already, now it's gone up because of the Iran-Israel conflict. We'll have to wait and watch and see how that pans out. But broadly, this is what the party manifesto is aiming at.
All right, but shifting gears, we're focusing towards laying the foundation for taking India through the next 25 years to reach the destination, which is developed India, says Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in an exclusive conversation with CNN News 18. Let's listen in to the experts of this conversation.
The Viksit Bharat 2047 was something which was clearly in his mind, and he wanted the manifesto to reflect the fact that in the 10 years that we have provided the basis for what we can take India to the next level, meaning we should lay the foundation for taking India through the next 25 years to reach the destination which is developed India. So that is the first thing which was in his mind, and he ensured that there are indicators for the steps that we are planning to take Indian economy further. We should relentlessly pursue the welfare schemes in a way. I don't want to use welfare as a word here. It was more to empower the poorest of the poor and make sure that we are able to support our farmers and provide enough opportunities to skill themselves for the youth, and above all, and very centrally to this whole thing, to keep women not just at the center of policy making, but to keep them up front there so that it will be women-led all through. A section of our population which still needs to be empowered. And that is why you have the PM Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which is extended for another 5 years. You also have a section of our population which is the farming community, particularly the small farmers, who against all odds, some man-made odds, some nature-made odds like the climate, extreme weather conditions, are giving us food on our table. So are we not going to support them? And therefore we made sure that in order to empower the farmers to be able to better perform in their farms, we need to get technology there, get the drones going there, ensure that fertilizer, the dependence on imported fertilizer be brought down, and subsidize fertilizer so that the farmer is not paying through his nose for an essential input. So thought has been applied to empowering sections of Indian society which with dignity intact can grow into the system and contribute to the system.
All right, some important comments coming in from Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on the development agenda in India's Amrit Kal. With that, we'll slip into a short breather on Business Lunch. But up next, inflation eases to 4.8% in the month of March, while industrial production accelerates to the fastest pace of growth in 4 months. We'll get you all the details on these macros when we return. Stay tuned.
You're watching Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Well, let us shift focus to some important domestic macro cues. Inflation has eased to 4.85% in the month of March, the slowest pace of growth in the last 10 months. Meanwhile, industrial production in Feb accelerated by 5.7%. This is the highest pace of growth in the last 4 months. Ritu joins us with all the details.
Well, thanks for that. Retail inflation eased to 4.85% in March, bang in line with the CNBC-TV18 poll. And this compares with 5.09% CPI we got in Feb and the lowest print since May of 2023. There was some easing across food prices, fuel and core items and some base effect which helped the inflation come down month on month. Core inflation, which is inflation without food and fuel, continued to ease along expected lines at 3.3% for March. Now, food inflation is where the spot of bother has been, and there, inflation did come down marginally over the previous month, but it remains above 7%. Food and beverages inflation came at 7.68% compared to 7.76% in Feb. The Consumer Food Price Index stood at 8.52%. Vegetable inflation lower month on month, but still reigning quite high. Cereal prices also went up for the month of March. We saw continued deflation, on the other hand, in fuel and light because of the reduction in LPG prices. Housing inflation also came down to 2.77%. Now, going ahead, RBI has highlighted that the impending heat wave and the ongoing uptrend in international crude oil prices could pose a risk to food inflation outlook. Now, IIP for the month of February, that came in at 5.7% compared to 3.8% in January. And at this now, IIP is the strongest that we've seen in 4 months. All of the key sectors, electricity, manufacturing and mining, recorded a higher growth rate in February compared to the previous month. Mining growing at 8%, manufacturing 5% and electricity at 7.5%. Now, in the use-based category, the data was quite mixed, ranging from a contraction of 3.8% in consumer non-durables and a double-digit expansion of 12.3% in consumer durables for the month of February.
All right. Thanks so much, Ritu, for getting us all those important macro numbers. All right. A quick look at the market at this point and a slight improvement in the market. Nothing much to talk about, but there is a slight bit of gain. ONGC, keep an eye out on that. That particular counter has gained more momentum, but also big boy Reliance Industries has shed some bit of weight. But remember that looking at its path, it had really recovered from the low point of the day to make good amount of gain. So still sitting with 0.5% of gain. When we look at some of the gainers as well as losers in the last few minutes of trade, well, Sun Pharma, Tech Mahindra, Tata Consumer Products, that has really gained. And on the losing side, some of the counters like I mentioned, big boy Reliance Industries, that needs to be watched out closely. Apart from that, Hindalco is sitting with gains, has shaved off some part of the gains. Grasim, Divi's Labs, HDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank. So these are the counters which have lost some ground. Of course, Bank Nifty remains with a cut of over 1%, but the mid-cap universe, that has stabilized or improved, a slight bit of buying seen in some of the beleaguered stocks at the moment. So therefore, that particular counter now sitting with minus 1% right now from 1.25% just 20 minutes back. So keep an eye out on the market, the big boys as well as the mid-cap momentum. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business Lunch, but don't go anywhere. Mid-cap radar comes up right next.